913-408-7957. Charlotte O'Hara with the eye-opening conversation about the La Quinta Inn off I-35 in Lenexa that is going to be turning into a homeless shelter run by Restart. And the Lenexa City Council can still potentially block this. It'll be in front of the Lenexa Planning Commission coming up on August 26th. That is 2 Mondays from now. And by the way, these planning commissions have never seen anything they don't rubber stamp. You want to talk about where most of the damage is done in cities around Johnson County, at least, because I kind of feel like I know the inner workings a little better there. These planning commissions screw everything up. They approve everything and anything, and the city council then votes on it, and they say, well, the planning commission said it was a good idea. What do you want me to do? It's always how it goes. I regret not getting in front of my planning commission on some things that happened in my community that still tick me off to this day. But I learned a lesson from it. So if you're a Lenexa resident, that's the next big thing coming up. And then if you're in any other city in Johnson County, you will be helping subsidize potentially this low barrier homeless shelter. And to reiterate, it's not about being unwilling to help the homeless, but you have to do it with some guardrails. If nothing else, why wouldn't you say it's got to be only for Johnson County residents so you're helping your own people? Why wouldn't you do that? Now, I know it's difficult. If you're homeless, you may not have IDs. Like, I get the reality of all that. But still, there's got to be something on that front. Travis in Lenexa's first up on KCMO. Go ahead, Travis.
Hey, so Pete, here's the concern that I have with this, and I would hope everyone would listen. I live within a mile of where this proposed shelter is going to be. Is we have a school that our neighborhood uses for pre-kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. That is within, I'm guessing, if I walked it off, less than a half a mile. It's basically under the bridge, and then a little bit down the road. I have contacted the city and asked them, there was an article on KSHB that was discussing that the neighborhoods, they're going to take into consideration the opinions of the neighborhood. But it's kind of odd to me that I talked to the neighborhood in casual conversations, out on the front porch by the stop sign while going to school like I did this morning. And it seems that a lot of the parents are unaware that this happened. Well, the city claims that they put out information in their little magazine that goes into the mailbox. But unfortunately, the article or what was referenced really didn't touch on the kind of homeless shelter that was being proposed, and it spent more time talking about what a special use permit is. Well, no one knows or even cares about this special use permit. They need to know what the shelter is, not about a special use permit. And that is the problem that we have right here. There's no plan. I'm going to be trying to contact the principal either this afternoon whenever I'm up there, but I'm willing to bet the principal up there at that school has no idea this is going down, and so there's no consideration for the safety of children. All we want to do is talk about safety of children, but then no one wants to do a damn thing about it.
Yeah, well, their safety is still putting them in masks or something like that for some of these people. But you're right, Travis. Thank you, man. Keep in touch. We'll stay on the story.
Hey, Pete, just make sure for the listeners out there, go to shelterlenexa.com to find out how you can help out on this effort, please.
Will do. Shelterlenexa.com. Laura is in Lenexa. You're on KCMO, Laura.
Hey, Pete. How are you today?
I'm doing well. What's going on?
I appreciate you covering this story. I want to emphasize that the Board of County Commissioners is trying to push this through in the dark of night. Citizens don't know about it. The Lenexa is already the crime hotspot of Johnson County. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. That's based on data tracked by the county. And I-35 is the reason for that. 95th and I-35, where the La Quinta is located, where this will be, the shelter is envisioned, is exactly in the hotspot of the hotspot. So this project, this is why the Planning Commission meeting is so important. This project will die if the Lenexa Planning Commission gets the message that this special use permit is not okay. And so the action item I would ask for your listeners is to turn out on August 26th at 7 o'clock in the evening at the Lenexa City Hall, City Hall, to show their disapproval. And it would also be helpful for them to send emails to planning@lenexa.com. And they have to include their name, their address, and their phone number, or the email will be deleted. Very, very important.
Name,
and really
address,
important.
phone.
Yes.
You got to be a
name,
resident.
address,
You got to be a Lenexa resident. They don't want to hear from people in Lee Summit, and nor should they. That's not their job.
Correct. However, if you live in Johnson County, show up at that Lenexa meeting, because we need to fill that room to let them know, no, we do not want this. Johnson County residents will be paying for this homeless shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And important to underscore something that Commissioner Charlotte O'Hara just said, she's been terrific, by the way, is the fact that when she attempted to get the Board of County Commissioners to limit this to Johnson County residents, which is really what we all think this is for, right? We have a different heart for it if that's the case. They not only would not vote to allow it to only be used for Johnson County residents, they refused to support this being limited to Americans.
Yeah, no,
and
that's
so what
crazy.
That really points to the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, Mike Kelly, is a bloated leftist agenda. And he has folks on the Board of County Commissioners that he has helped to elect with money. So he owns their political souls, and they vote in lockstep with him. Every one of them, with the exception of Charlotte O'Hara and Michael Ashcraft. So they're trying to push this through. The Board of County Commissioners bought this.
Laura, I am out of time. I'm up against it. I got a lot of folks. You bring up outstanding points, and we're going to get to more folks on this right after the news. Pete Mundo on KCMO. We'll get to our caller of the day coming up, but right now we're talking to you because we had a conversation this hour with Johnson County Commissioner Charlotte O'Hara about the updated plans for this low-barrier homeless shelter at the old La Quinta Inn and Suites off I-35 and 95th Street. That's the location they're looking at. The county has approved it. They rejected what Charlotte O'Hara wanted to have happen, which was at least make it allowed only for Johnson County residents and only for American citizens, and the county commission would not go along with that. So now it's in the hands of the Lenexa City Council. There is a planning commission meeting at Lenexa City Hall on the night of August 26th. And if you are a Lenexa resident, I hate to say it, but you know what? The ball's in your court. Anybody can go, but I think it's most effective if it's coming from Lenexa residents. 913-408-7957. Christine is in Overland Park. She is on KCMO. Hello, Christine. Good morning.
Hi, Pete.
What's going on?
Well, okay, so I'm a physician, and I feel like that this problem that's going on is very much an American problem. I see people in medicine that are paying $1,000 a month to get a weight loss drug. If you add that up over millions of Americans that are using this every year, how much does that cost us? Could we take that money and get to the root causes of why so many Americans are overweight? And there's a lot of root causes, but there's so much better ways to use that money. This is the same thing. We're investing $6 to $8 million in this when we add it all up. Could we look at cities around the country that have very nicely decreased or eliminated their homeless problem, take that money, study those cities, figure out what are the root causes of homelessness in our community, fix those root causes with those millions of dollars. And I'm not saying we're going to take all the homeless off the street, but I bet you we could decrease them significantly and we could prevent it significantly. I hate the way we take the money and put a Band-Aid on a bleeding gunshot wound. Let's stop the gunshot wound before it ever happens.
That is very well said, Christine, and you're absolutely right. And real quick, you don't think this Ozempic thing is going to be, working all that well long term?
I worry that it has not been studied enough and that we are going to 2, 5, 10 years down the road find side effects that are going to be very poor for people, potentially deadly. Mm-hmm. And like everything else that we do, we put things out quickly and then we wait to see what the side effects are.
Yeah.
And I think for some people who are morbidly obese, that the benefit probably does outweigh the risk.
Mm-hmm.
But I worry that on a mass scale, we are going to do harm.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you very much, Christine. And, so well said, too, just about the homeless issue. None of us want a massive homeless population anywhere, right? So what's the best way to spend money, millions of dollars, from our county and potentially our cities around Johnson County to try to prevent people from becoming homeless rather than just saying, we're going to spend millions of dollars on 50 beds or 50 rooms at the old La Quinta Inn and Suites off I-35 and 95th Street? That does nothing to help people get back on their feet. That does nothing to figure out how we ended up with a larger homeless population than we used to have. All those things are very good questions that really need to be answered and need to be brought up in the conversation. But hey, when you're a government like Johnson County and you've got more than enough money and millions of dollars that you haven't yet spent, it's all play money. It's all toy money. So why not get to feel good about yourself and say, I'm here to help the homeless? Even though all you're doing in many respects is potentially enabling them. Jeff and Lenexa, you're on KCMO. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, thanks for having this discussion on your program. I've been following this from day one, going to the Board of County Commissioners meetings all the way through to a meeting last week. So the Board of County Commissioners told us all along, we heard it from Shirley Allenbrand, this would be for Johnson County residents, okay? Mm-hmm. We were told all along the operator would be self-funding. And then we were told that it was the valuation would be $10 million. Well, it's gone from a property value of $4.5 million that they purchased for $6 million. Again, Pete, you talk about taxpayers' money. Somebody made $1.5 million on this transaction without doing anything. And then there's another 3.7 in the budget for renovation. Who knows? As I've gone through the due diligence report, there's a former gas station on the property, a former dry cleaner. There's mold. The property's a mess. I would just ask Lenexa residents, just go sit in the parking lot for 10 minutes and look at the property.
Yeah.
It's a disaster waiting to happen. And if we're going to have homeless people sitting next to I-35 in a cubicle in a room with no treatment, no job training, it's going to be a really poor result. And I agree with all your callers that government has not done their job for, guess who? The residents of Johnson.
The taxpayer. County. Yep. Thanks so much there, Jeff. Appreciate it. Steve in Lenexa. Go, Steve.
Well, I'm in a little bit different boat than a lot of the callers you've spoke to. I happen to own a business directly across the street called the Kansas City Mint. I've owned the Bank of America for 26 years, and last year I decided to double down and reinvest in the area and converted the bank, and we're opening next week as the Kansas City Mint event, meeting, and a team building space. And I've put millions into the project, and we were obviously into the construction phase when it was announced that La Quinta was going under contract. And so you can imagine I have a high degree of interest in what they're going to do and how they're going to operate the facility directly across the street from what I hope to be the most high-end event space in not just Johnson County, but in all of Kansas City with the amenities that we have. So, I've been in their private meetings of landowners and I believe they call it interested investors in the area. And I've heard the things that they say about operations and how they're going to run it and stuff. I don't want to be on the record as saying I'm anti-homeless. That's like saying, are you against feeding hungry children? No,
yes.
By no means. There is absolutely a need for this. I have had homeless here at the building, just come and go. I don't know where they stay, but you see people, trafficking, coming across the parking lot, loitering in the parking lot and those kinds of things. And that's now with nothing across the street. So my biggest concern, and I voiced this at the most recent interested investors meeting, what happens to somebody that comes in after hours? Because they have strict operation hours. They talk about that they're a gated facility. What happens to the person who doesn't have an appointment, who just heard that this is a place for you can be a safe overnight stay on a whatever night. What happens if that person shows up at 5:30? They say, oh, well, we send them away. We don't let them in. And then the questions persisted. Okay, well, what do you do with that person who just got sent away? And they said, well, we don't have to deal with them. It's by appointment only. And again, the person persisted and said, but what happens? Where does that person go? And they didn't have an answer. Well, that obviously had me scratching my head because I'm the guy across the street. So I think there are some things that certainly if this goes through, and I've talked to the city and Lenexa and many of the elected officials to try to get their ear on this subject. If it goes through, you still have a commitment to the area and to the businesses like myself who have invested a lot of money and a lot of life in this corner to make sure that it doesn't become a hive of negative activity. And so, at the KC Mint, we're trying to be the highest end, best solution for any party, meeting, or event in Kansas City. And if there's panhandlers as you exit the exit ramp at 95th and I-35, I didn't set the best agenda for somebody coming for a tour.
And that's the thing. And now they're going to potentially, and I'm glad you're on it, and we appreciate you checking in, Steve. That is where you're going to also create a situation where people will disinvest. They won't want to invest in a key part of Johnson County, a major thoroughfare. You want guys like Steve starting their businesses right there on 95th and I-35. And it sounds like he's still doing it. But I'll tell you what, the next person's going to think twice. Just think beyond what makes you feel good. Think beyond what makes you, look woke and look equitable and look like you're doing the right thing at your dopey cocktail parties. Goodness. Gayleen in Lenexa. You're last up for now, Gayleen. Go ahead. I got a minute for you.
Well, I've been very concerned about this homeless shelter. Thanks for taking my call. I've been going to the Board of County Commissioners meetings most every Thursday and to their Committee of the Whole and study groups since January of 2023. All along, as other callers have indicated, it has been for the Johnson County homeless and to house them. And I am totally on board that we need to take care of our homeless, but this cannot be for just anybody coming through the Kansas City area, especially with I-35 coming right up through from Mexico. And it's interesting that Lenexa is going to have dumpster days here in October. And to leave something at the dumpster days, you have to have a Lenexa ID, an ID that shows you're a Lenexa resident. But to stay in this homeless shelter, you need nothing, and that's just not right.
Thank you, Gayleen. And listen, these are clearly legitimate concerns from everyday residents and taxpayers in Lenexa. And you've heard from them extensively over the last 20 minutes. What is the city council going to do? And by the way, you're telling me that there's going to be a lot of Lenexa residents who are like, this is an awesome idea, especially with the low barrier element of it? Come on now. We'll wrap up the show with just an outstanding clip from this morning that'll bring a smile to your face on reaction to the inflation number that came out 2 hours ago. We'll get to it next on 95.7 FM KCMO. And, oh, by the way, our caller of the day, well, I had one lined up, but I'm going to give it to everybody who just called in from Lenexa. It was the Lenexa Hour, the Lenexa Caller Hour here on KCMO. So a round of applause. Lenexa coming in hot and heavy over the last 25, 30 minutes. So you're all the callers of the day.